We are now streaming live, so we'll have to be very careful about what we say. All right. Isithakazelo sekhaya sithi
Wosiyana, W-O, yeah, Wosiyana, Omashiza, Ogcugcwa. That one is very popular. Oncameni, but Ogcugcwa, Wosiyana, Mashiza. Yeah.
All right. No, thank you very much. All right. Singabantu fanele sizazi nezithakazelo.
Yebo.
Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi digital platform via multiple social media platforms, via Facebook, via YouTube, via Twitter, and also via the Dr. Fundi website. My name is Fundi Lenyati. I am the host of this digital channel. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that's important to talk about, but it's a sensitive topic as well. We are going to be talking about some of the challenges that come with, having to have a burial or a funeral for a loved one, because as a result of the state of disaster regulations relating to funerals, things are not the way that we are used to. There's a lot of restrictions in terms of numbers, in terms of how many days it must take, for a body to be buried. And if that person has succumbed to COVID-19 disease, there is the sealing of the body and regulations around that, and how many days, like it must be buried within 3 days, and all of that. So a few people who unfortunately have lost their loved ones have learned the hard way, how difficult it is to actually conduct a funeral during this time. So today, my special guest is Miss Linda Zama, who is from Durban. She resides in Durban. She's a KZN person through and through. She studied law, obtained LLB from my alma mater, University of KwaZulu-Natal, currently working as a special advisor to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, the Office of the Premier, the main office being in Maritzburg, but I've just been told that there is also, an operational office, a COVID, operational office that's based at the ICC in Durban. So, Sis Linda, welcome to the platform. Thank you for agreeing at relatively short notice to actually be my guest today.
Thank you very much for having me. And thank you to those who are watching this conversation.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you to all our viewers. you know, sometimes we say wisdom is also gained by listening and observing those who've gone through difficult situations, so that if that happens to you, you actually, you know, are better prepared. So to kickstart this discussion, Sis Linda, I'll just call you Sis Linda if you don't mind.
Oh yes, that's fine. Yes, I'm happy. I'm comfortable.
Or ngingakubiza ngesithakazelo ngithi Cucwa, Mashiza. Mashiza.
That's serious stuff.
You know, one of the things I've learned is that if you actually find out isithakazelo somuntu, you know, and actually just throw in one or two of his thakazelo zakhe, they tend to, you know, lower their guards and be much more warmer. So sometimes when I need a favor, I will go and research isithakazelo sakho, so that I can use that to try and soften you. So, but anyway, here you had already agreed, so I'm not trying to soften you. Right. So, Sis Linda, we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa. We had our first case of COVID-19 in South Africa, and that case came from KZN. That was on the 5th of March. So
Yes.
we are now just over 4 months since we first had a case here.
Mhm.
For a long time, it was something that was just far. But
Exactly.
we are now at a point where many people know of somebody or a family that has been affected by COVID-19, in the sense that they have lost a loved one. And your family has recently lost your brother.
Yes.
And obviously, being this time of COVID, and the regulations that regulate the funerals and burials, that must have been a challenge. But besides that, just losing a loved one, in the area of psychology, they've got a rating of the levels of stress depending on various life incidents. When one loses a spouse, is rated the highest, followed by divorce, followed by a separation. And when you lose a loved one, it's also in the top 5 of the most stressful, life incidences. And so, as a family, you've just gone through that situation. And I think before we get to the discussion, I must just say, heartfelt condolences to you and also to your family for the loss of your brother.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
Now, the reason why I invited you, Sis Linda, is that we are Facebook friends. And, I normally go through your timeline like all, people on Facebook. And this time around, you put up a post about 2 days ago, a post that said, you don't normally talk about sensitive matters, or personal matters of a sensitive nature on social media. But you decided that this time around, you were going to share with the Facebook community experiences that you, went through as an individual, but also as a family, as part of the burial of your brother. So what prompted that, really? What prompted?
It was a tricky and a very traumatic experience. Most Black people, for instance, take death very seriously. I usually watch on Facebook, the people pouring their hearts out when friends have passed away, and there'll be messages of may his or her soul rest in peace. So it's something that people take very seriously, and they pour their emotions, etc.
Yes.
When this happened to my family at this time, as you have correctly pointed out, yes, it was there. However, it hadn't hit the family.
Yes.
And when that happened, the first thing was that, my goodness, we are not dealing with a normal situation here.
Yes.
And my nephews, that is my brother's children, my nephews, my nieces, had lost a father. The wife had lost a husband. We,
Yes.
the sisters, have lost a brother.
Yes.
In addition to that, my brother was a prominent member of the community. He had been a deputy mayor, speaker at the local municipality, and the Zama family, for instance, in that area, are well known for just being people who work for the community. So there was this outpouring of support, of grief, etc.,
Yes.
in a totally abnormal situation.
Yes.
New, and my brother lived at Amandawe. It is 22 kilometers south of where I am,
Yes.
a semi-rural area. So people just decided that they were going to mourn as normal.
Yes.
The women would be coming to pay their condolences, and they would come and start singing. And then Linda would be saying, hey, we're not allowed to sing here.
Mm.
There will be Ikosa without a mask, who would be leading this whole thing. And you sit there observing this whole thing, that this thing has not hit people. That we cannot grieve, we cannot mourn, we cannot sing Simkupulu Mundu, as it's usually said. It was, and then members of the public would leave, and then the family would be planning now, because we were supposed to bury him within 3 days.
Yes. Yes.
During the planning, there would be these colorful discussions now, because again, family members wanted to give my brother the best fitting send off, and I would be listening to the plans, and then I would be saying, this one cannot happen.
Before the system. Now, in the hierarchy of the family, when we talk family, especially during those times, one needs to know their position in the family. You know, how much you say, the authority that you have is linked to where you are. You know, you are a male. So how just paint a little bit about that.
Yes, that's a good one, because I have our eldest sister who calls herself Umafungwase, you know, was leading the whole thing. And then my nephew, who is a man, you know, was also leading the other side. Then my sister-in-law, as his wife, would just quietly make a contribution. But I had to shut up. In my family, although I'm a lawyer, I usually keep quiet, because I notice that I easily tread on toes. So I know where I belong in the family. You know, there is no lawyering there. There is nothing like the Premier's special advisor there.
Yeah.
You know, I am a member of the family. So
you must keep quiet.
exactly. So I would keep quiet and listen to this whole thing, telling myself that this is not going to work, but I'll be working out the diplomatic approach. Those are the Zamas. They're very, their opinions, and as you correctly point out, the hierarchy. So you speak when you are asked to speak. So I would keep quiet. And I think members of the family maybe would become uncomfortable when I'm not saying anything. Then Uma Fungwas, who had anointed herself as the chairperson of the planning committee, would finally look at me and say, what about you? What do you say? Then I would start saying, actually, this is how this whole thing works. These are the regulations. What is being proposed now will be in contravention of the regulations because of ABCD. Sometimes I would keep quiet again until I am asked, you know, to say something. When Alinda njengomuntu womthetho-ke, what do you think? That is when they were becoming a bit comfortable with me. But some plans were so colorful as they were trying to work around the regulations, because I would be sitting there to say, no, that can't be done. So they would come up with other plans. There was one plan, for instance, where they were, because I was saying, we need to work on a family register. The Zamas are a clan, but by Sizwe. So I was saying 50, including the priest, whoever would. Exactly, and Amaroma Lawa. So then they decided, family now is saying, no, there will be a drive past. You know, the family will be seated inside, and some people will be coming to pay their condolences, signing the visitor's book or the condolences book, and then they drive away. So I know this sounds a bit funny now that I think about it, but when I realized how complicated the whole thing was, I then volunteered to be a chief marshal. I said, all right, you will remain inside, the 50 of you. I'll be a chief marshal outside and make sure that people don't stop, that they drive away, because the police will come.
These are the days leading to the funeral itself.
Yes, this is it. No.
Is it?
Duduza, I finally said, look, you know, let us insist on sanitizing hands. We had to put it outside. Let us insist on face masks. And then what about the singing? I abakule, but they must sing behind face masks. Exactly. So I remember saying to them, oh, there was Igosa who was singing without a face mask, and Mina, I was humming behind my face mask. I said, we just have to do that. It's either people hum behind face masks, or they wear and they don't sing. But no. We are a singing people, so we needed to sing. I said, okay, we fire on behind face masks. In any case, it worked.
So during the period before social distancing, how were you enforcing that?
Oh yes, that was another thing. Social distancing then involved that we put chairs in such a way that at least there was space, that's 1.5 meters, etc. However, as you may even guess, people would come and move the chairs because there are quite a number of them now.
Yeah.
And you sit there looking at this whole thing, and these are outsiders. And I would say, no, I need to keep quiet here and until they leave. And after leaving, I would then brief the family that we have a challenge with social distancing. We need to insist on social distancing. As a result, we had to broaden the space so that at least people could even sit and spread, and that worked. But again, the whole thing involved having to conduct a workshop, but in a very diplomatic way, bearing in mind that this was something new, bearing in mind that when people say we have come to pay our condolences, they want to be received, and they want what they are bringing, that sharing of the condolence, they want to be received with respect. Yes, and family must thank them, etc. So one was not supposed to say when they are already in the lounge that actually social distancing, and then when they move the chairs. So because I had observed that behavior during the service, during the funeral service now, we briefed the program director.
Let's not get there. Yes. Right. Now, before we get to the funeral part,
yes,
as umuntu womthetho wena, did you actually, because I'm sure you know the regulations, you must have downloaded them, did you sort of workshop the family on, guys, this is a funeral, according to the state of disaster regulation, so and so, we can only have 50 people, including whoever, we must do social, all the things that are supposed to be done. Did you have to workshop them or they already knew?
I had to, it was interesting because right up to having to report at the police station, I had to advise the family that we need to report at the police station.
Yes.
And then I came to the family to say, these are the regulations. And the thorny part is, yes, everything, for instance, even Ufata, the father who was going to conduct the funeral, had to be assisted. So I had to explain all those things, that he can't just bring a whole band of people because of the restriction. 50 people, including the people he was bringing.
Yes.
And as far as the family was concerned, I had to remind them every day, by the way, the register, the family register. I explained to them that if, for instance, a Zama family, and my sister-in-law, Wakampele, if a Zama family or Mbele family, these are big families, I said they will have to nominate representatives because the Zamas on their own are just a big clan. So we were going to be swamped. I said, there must be family representation. And then we had to leave it with families to actually nominate, but a register was compiled. It was unnatural, but it had to be done.
But how easy was that? Pelamanje, you must use some criteria. Ulandu leya gukokubani fanlaze or rubani,
yes.
How easy is that, or how difficult is it to actually, because this is a matter of death.
I know.
And everybody wants to be there to pay their last respect. And others will feel snubbed if they are not in the list.
Precisely. We then, and when Booty passed away, what was feasible was that as people, even relatives, as they were coming, we then informed them. We didn't want surprises. We informed them that we are dealing with a situation that is totally abnormal. And again, even Isboni, we're coming, one had to do an acceleration of the regulations, that this is what we are doing and this is why we are doing it. And then obviously to appreciate the fact that they've come. So from the onset, people were assisted to understand that on the day of the funeral, it will be, we were calling it the immediate, the core families. That's right. So, and people are still coming even right now. However, that usually happens, etc.
Yeah.
But the weeding and the explaining of what was going on, why it was being done the way it was being done, started immediately after my brother passed away.
Yes. Now, people, well, you shared that your brother died from COVID-19 related complications.
Yes, yes.
Now, was it a sudden death, or maybe uke wagula for a week or so, as a special?
Right. My brother had comorbidities, right? But what happened was that on a Sunday, because he was tired, the wife took him to the doctor. It was discovered that the blood pressure was very, very high. That was on a Sunday. And then on a Monday, my sister-in-law decided to take him back to the doctor because the doctor had said he would like just to do a checkup. Yeah. Well, high blood pressure was coming down, and the doctor just said, look, you are fine because you can look after yourself at home. It's fine. I'm not going to admit you at hospital, but take it easy at home. And then they went home. That was on Monday. Yeah. On Tuesday, he was just taking it easy at home as he had been advised. Then in the evening, watching television together with the wife. So he said he was going to bed, and he went to the bedroom. The wife followed and found that he had fallen. Yeah, she had just fallen, and then said, what is going on now? And then my brother said, well, I can't breathe. Can you help me to breathe? So my sister-in-law asked two girls to come and help her just to lift him and put him in bed. As they were lifting him, he just slipped, collapsed again, and that was it. That eyes went this way. Yeah. Obviously, he had to be rushed to hospital, and I think this is very important. Had to be rushed to the nearby hospital, which is Kingsway. Yes. And Kingsway didn't have beds, the full chock-a-block. Then they had to phone around for a hospital that had a bed available, and they got it in the north coast of Durban, Umhlanga Hospital. Yes. Yes. That's right. So he was then ferried to Umhlanga Hospital by ambulance. The doctor indicated that he had suffered massive stroke, and he was put on a ventilator. And nobody was allowed access to him.
That's the reason why I was asking, because everybody who is COVID positive, yes, they get to be there in hospital on their own, no visitors. So as the family, you are anxious, away from your loved one, and it's him and the medics and his God.
Exactly. that is what happened. I don't wish that experience to anybody. It is a reality that visited us unexpectedly, and we were there as family, literally imagining what was going on. My sister-in-law was relying on a report from the doctor, and then my nephew, who has a friend who is a nurse there, was also relying on a report from the nurse, but there was no access. And this is what happened. In the meantime, Isboni, we're coming. As far as people were concerned, Buti was going to come back. They were praying. Buti was going to come back and be with my sister-in-law again. And my sister-in-law also believed that. Then I was then told that the doctor had phoned my sister-in-law, asking her to come over. Some of us know that when that phone call says, come over, we know what that's right. And the phone call was that it needed to be my sister-in-law and another person, only 2 people. They went. My niece was the first. She was given 3 minutes. And she took a video of my brother. That ventilator is heavy. I'm not a medical doctor, but I looked at that whole thing, the breathing, because we were told that only the sisters, etc., and just a core of us needed to see the video. So I knew what was coming. Then it was after 3 minutes, then my sister-in-law was allowed in. She reported that she had talked to my brother in that condition, just saying, I want you back home, etc. They go back home. And I remember I linked up with them after work. Then my sister-in-law said she was feeling a bit better because she had seen him. And thank God the doctor did what he did. The following morning, actually, he passed away at 2 o'clock in the morning. After that visit, he was gone. And then the acceleration to prepare for the funeral. That was heavy. It takes such an emotional toll. I cannot describe it. Yeah.
Let me just stop there, because I just want to understand the kahle ukuthi so ngesikhathi ubhuti wakho he's in ICU, he's in that ventilator, he's had a stroke, and his blood pressure, which was high, had been reported to be going down.
Yes, and the kidneys, by the way, the kidneys were also packing. Yes.
Yes, So then clearly the doctor who was looking after him could see that the vitals are not going well, and needed to get the family to at least see him whilst he's still alive, even though he most probably was sedated or definitely not conscious. But ukuthi akhona ungena akhulume umuntu than just be told ukuthi uhambile. And from a grieving point of view, that's very, very important. You were lucky that at least that the doctor was able to afford you that opportunity. But manje masokufika indaba ke in the early hours ukuthi akasekho ubaba, I mean the brother, to somebody like you, maybe you already had a sense already from the day before that it was hambi kahle. How was it, for the family?
Umafungwase and myself had communicated with all is not well. The sisters, I'm going to say, are my siblings, but with the children and my sister-in-law, the wife, they were not ready. they were just not ready. So we, my brothers, sisters, had to be very strong for my sister-in-law as well as the children who were just not ready for what happened.
So at what point then was the diagnosis of COVID-19 related illness made? Or is it something that was done afterwards? I'm just, angithi manje bengene nge-pressure ibiphezulu wabane stroke.
Yes.
You know, so yeah.
Yes, he was admitted and then he was tested.
Okay. Yes.
He was tested. Then the results were relieved a day before he passed away.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So by the time bayombona the day before, sekwaziwa ukuthi utholwe ulobhubhane.
Yes. 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 That's right.
And that the implications then of that is that laba bebesiza usister-in-law ukuthi bamphakamise, they now become direct contacts.
Exactly. And then Linda again comes. You know, I look at the whole thing to say, my sister-in-law and all the people who came into contact with him needed to be tested. Usisige was accompanied, and I was having a discussion with them yesterday that my sister-in-law needs to go back to be tested because she was tested immediately after my brother's passing. However, you know, I'm told that she reported that our results are negative, but what I have advised her to go back again, and get tested.
Yes. So Leslie, all of this thing is happening so quickly. You know, you had a brother who had nje ukuthi akazizwa kahle. The next minute the BP is high. Ubuyele ekhaya, he worsens, he gets a stroke, and then ungena esibhedlela. He complicates, sekafakwa kuma-ventilator, and then he's gone.
Yes.
And you guys haven't had any time to adjust to all of this.
No.
And at the same time, now you get to hear that akasekho and it's COVID related, and you know exactly what our regulations are. If it's COVID related disease, a disease that has led to death, 3 days lo muntu kufanele abe sekangcwatshiwe. And so it meant you guys must switch to the planning mode.
Exactly.
Rather than entertaining grief.
Exactly. We switch into the planning mode. I have government work to do this side, and I'll never forget, it was a Thursday because my sister-in-law needed to get my brother's death certificate. It's a Thursday. The funeral was going to be on Sunday. Midday, she calls to say, we need your intervention. We need your intervention. Home Affairs is not going to issue the death certificate because there is a part that was not filled by the hospital. They didn't take his left and right hand thumbprint. She goes further because, and then I said, oh, at least let the undertakers handle that. She says to me, they say they can't open the body.
Yes,
they've already,
there's a
it's
sealing
sealed.
of the body. Yes.
That's right.
Says, sealing of the body.
Exactly. It's sealed, and they can't just open the body because if they do that without authorization, they lose their license. Unless it's the Department of Health. Can you do something? And then again, you say, oh my goodness. So I had to think, who do I call who can expedite the process? Because nothing could happen, without the death certificate. Yes. And I must say, thanks to Dr. Musa Gumede, who,
yes.
he he was in a meeting, but because I ended up sending a detailed text message, he then responded and suggested the person I could contact, gave me the number, and that is how we were helped to actually get that hurdle.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
No,
So
that was very good of Umusa. Phela sasonke eres noMusa.
honestly, he is what an amazing professional. Actually, the good thing is that I usually tell him that he represents the professionals I associate with. You know, that's right. He does. He helped me quite a lot. Yeah.
Yes,
And made my work easy, because the family was now looking
up
at me to absolutely that, you know, you better get us out of this whole thing.
Yes. So you were able to be assisted, and at least those parts of the forms that needed to be filled in were filled in. But again, remember the anxiety around this whole thing.
I know.
On one side, you need the death certificate,
and
you can't get it. And the process is to fill this thing in requires that the body must be reopened. That is the sealing.
And then decontaminate the facility.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. But anyway, that was done. So it then at least started the process of then preparing for the funeral.
Yes.
But then the body stays there, sealed. And niplana ukuthi umngcwabo ube ngecawe ngesonto.
Yes, that's right. At 9 o'clock, you know, funeral. Now, this is another interesting part. People expected that the coffin at least would be there. No, the coffin was not there. During the service,
umzimba ufike the morning of the funeral ngoba ngizwa kuthiwa awulali ayenziwa lento yasemakhaya.
No, awulali.
Before it comes straight from the mortuary, ize ekhaya isiya emangcwabeni.
And ke ekabhuti ayiphumanga ngisho kwi-hearse. The priest blessed the coffin igwi-hearse, and when we left for the cemetery, i-hearse yagcina the coffin was kept in the hearse while they were sorting out his final resting place, and then they took the coffin straight to the grave.
So
just like
now, being Black people, we normally have rituals, especially in the semi-rural or rural areas. Lapo there's some rondavel or six corner, you know, where fanum udlule khona kuqala before manje zonke lezo zinto are not done.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I call this the acceleration, psychological acceleration. Uguti, hey, this is something totally new. We don't know it, but we need to flow with it. Yeah, we need to flow with it. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So so at what point did you become this super corp of compliance then on the day?
Well, I became a super corp of compliance from when, for instance, my brother passed away. When I was saying this is how it needs to happen from start to finish. And I was just not compromising on this one, because I didn't want the family to be remembered for having been so reckless or lax to such an extent. 40 people who attended that funeral were infected. I dreaded that. I
Yes.
even went
And by the
further.
way, that's a reality. Sorry
Yes.
to interject there. That's a reality in Port Elizabeth. A funeral that was in some town in a suburb there called Kwadwesi, and another one in a township called Zwide. Those two funerals of prominent people became what was called super spreader events, in that there were a lot of people and the regulations were not followed. And subsequent to that, so many people who were there got infected in your 40s and 50s, you know. So your concern was definitely a real concern.
Yeah, I dreaded that. And I remember quietly saying to one of my sisters, people would say, Gishuli Ndube, she allowed that to happen. So um, I took on that load, and then I said to myself, if it means being unpopular, it's fine. However, I I just I think by nature there is a diplomat in me, because I had the patience of taking people through, and I must record my appreciation for the family, because obviously they could have told me off, and there be those conflictual exchanges, etc. But we used to sit. Yes, I would have a headache after that when I say, they were not getting it. But in the end, they accepted that it had to be done, not because we were being nasty or being fussy or being insensitive. It was to make sure that our family is not remembered as a family that yielded or spread coronavirus infections. Yeah.
So on the day of the funeral, you ensured that the numbers don't exceed 50.
Oh, yes.
You
Oh, yes.
ensured
Oh, yes.
social distancing. You ensured
Exactly.
sanitizers. You
Exactly.
ensured that everybody has got a mask.
Exactly. And what was interesting, I did not expect the MEC for Finance to attend the funeral. Normally they tell you, etc. So we were already seated when somebody came to me to say, I'm being asked to tell you that the MEC for Finance has arrived. Fortunately, because we had counted the chairs, some people hadn't arrived, and so he had a seat. He also went to.
Because manje ama-minders akhe makahlale lapha ngaphandle.
I telling apart the minders. I literally went to them. I single-handedly led the MEC. Ama-minders are telling ngale about people who were not part of this 50 were sitting outside in their cars. And I also like this because as family, we ended agreeing that most of us, the younger ones, needed to be ushers so that we control the situation.
Yes.
And that is what was happening. It was mainly the younger family members who were ushers, and that also freed certain seats because, yeah, that's right, they were outside. The younger family members were outside ushering people to their seats, and the MEC's minders, they were in the car. Nobody was allowed in.
Yes. And obviously, all this time you are monitoring this compliance. How much of the service, though, did you actually participate in when? And if you are overseeing this thing, then my assumption is that you won't be there to listen to this to the speech.
You are in and out. Yes, true. I was in and out. At least I could hear because of the sound system. Yes. And then there were also, they put up screens so that for some of us. That's right, who were outside. Yes,
Okay.
but I could hear,
Yes.
and we indicated that the program had to be short.
Yes. How long was the program? Because I'm told that it shouldn't be more than an hour.
I know the tributes took 30 minutes. No, it was 20 minutes tribute. And then the service was less than an hour. We then waited a little bit when they were bringing the body, because they delayed, when it came to bringing the body. So as we were waiting for the body to be brought, the program director tweaked the program a little bit,
Yes.
by just allowing people just to speak longer than,
Yes.
Other than that, it was short.
Who was a community worker here.
I
So it must have been very difficult, for ukuthi abantu, umuntu who's a public figure like that, and
Yes,
they don't even have an opportunity to say. So in a way, that was a blessing in disguise, ukuthi kune delay.
Yes, that's right. And so we slotted in MEC for finance, no district mayor. They were not part of the program, but because they pitched up, and then there was a delay when it came to bringing the body, we slotted them in, and then the service was very, very short. Coffin blessed, boom, and then we were out.
But that should have been a bit strange still, though. Ukuthi nenze umngcwabo, and there's no coffin la ngaphambi kwenu.
No. It was.
That is before the coffin came. I'm sorry, before the hearse came. It was even Masaifikile. It did not. There was no.
No. Exactly. Agapumanga. Yes, that's right. There was my brother's portrait.
Yeah.
That's at least that covered the gap.
Yeah.
When the coffin arrived, the program director had already appraised the mourners. We are dealing with a situation that is not usual. Agazupuma, the priest went, blessed the coffin, and that was it.
Yes, so, and then from there straight to the graveside.
Cemetery. Yes.
And
that's
there,
right.
now I know in the urban areas they insist on the TLBs, which is they become the ones that dig the grave. But Emakaya, there's normally groups of local men who will have started digging the grave days before. Manja, this is semi-rural, so which one was it?
We had the men, who, yes. My cousin used her TLB, and then the men came, to dig and shape the grave. And what was interesting, I'm glad you are also raising that, because I also indicated that it was very important for us to know who the men were.
Yes.
So that when we are called to account, as far as contact tracing, etc., we know who is who. Then Duna also wanted, brought a form. Isn't Duna? They also get a form. That's right. So again, there was this monitoring of the gravesite. We asked one of our senior relatives, Upuntlanhla Zama, to actually oversee that angle and make sure that it is done in compliance again with the regulations.
Yes. And I'm also told that Masele, once the coffin has gone down, everybody must leave, with the exception of a handful, maybe 3 family members, who, and the TLB must close the grave, and then everybody must leave back to the home, so that they just get their takeaways and disappear.
Exactly.
Now,
That is what happened. My sister-in-law, with just a handful people, remained, and this is what I did, because the whole thing hit me. After that, I literally went, sat in my car, overlooking the grave.
yeah.
I watched as people were leaving, but I needed just space to take the whole thing in, because it was heavy. It was just too heavy for me. So I was observing this whole thing. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want people to talk to me, and maybe balokube babaza mina, etc. I locked myself in the car, sat and watched everybody moving away.
And so, and so your sister-in-law and the handful made sure which did, evaluate, and then they had to rush back home. Again, in an African funeral, before people get into the yard, there is the washing of hands. Was there washing of hands?
Okay. Oh, very interesting, because there was, as we were planning, then came the washing of hands. People were saying there has to be washing of hands. Oh, I was saying sanitize.
Yes.
Then my nephew was saying, no. Traditionally, there must be the washing of hands. I don't know what bafagani. This is it. And then I said, but that will not be in line with the regulations, because
if one of them has got infection,
I know this is it. So actually that was a very heated one, because I was told, hi, there's a funeral, so and so's funeral, they had to buy, I don't know, umswane, that sort of thing. And then I said, it can't happen here, the compromise. And then quickly, I then said, all right, let's go for both. Let people wash their hands, and station number 2, sanitize. Yes. And it worked, because one then, and people are becoming quite emotional about this washing of hands thing. Yes. And I get so and just both, okay, start with the washing of hands, then gapa, sanitize. And they did that.
And then, and from there, there's no congregation. You take your takeaway.
Take your takeaway, exactly. Yes, that's
and
right.
The person and these takeaways are not dished at that time.
No. Everything is pegged. They had juice and these takeaways, etc. And as I say, I just wanted to sit alone in the car, watch this whole thing, and go.
Now, okay.
Then you start, the morning then starts after that.
That's what I was going to get to now, because you guys have been on a mode and almost automation, adrenaline driven, chasing that everything happens. Now he has been put to rest. Now the reality sinks in. Exactly. You guys must now deal with the grief.
Exactly. Dealing with reality now, and the whole thing comes back. You are mentally, you are emotionally, you are physically drained.
Yes.
But life has to continue. And then again, this is another thing. I learned that one has to be very, very strong spiritually.
Yes.
And as a practicing Christian, I then said to myself, I've learned that all these layers and layers and layers of identities that we identify ourselves, this and this and that. To be honest, my brother's passing away drove the message clear to me that, you know what, when one is gone, the body is just a casement. It's just a vessel
for the soul.
For the soul. And I think, I don't think I would have understood, not mentally, you know, with my heart, I would not have understood it as I do now. That with Ubudi, yes, with all these titles, his body was wrapped in layers of plastics, and that's it. So what matters, it's a soul, and the fact that he really lives in our hearts as Ubudi. Yeah. I saw the video that they took of him battling to breathe under that ventilator, and I don't want to see that again. And yeah.
Did it traumatize you?
It did.
Watching that.
It did, to such an extent that I no longer hesitate to explain why people need to keep a social distance, why people need to wear a mask. For instance, this afternoon, I was at one of the car washes. So I took my laptop as I was washing the car, and there is a place that says, no mask, no entry. All right, I was wearing my mask, the sanitizer was there, and then I started doing my work. People were coming in, complying, or you even write, you know, there's a register of who enters there. And then there is this one person who just walked in without a mask, didn't register entry. No, there was nothing that he did in compliance. And what was interesting is that I think the cashier was also intimidated by this person. He then sits next to me, and then, no, I said to myself, I'm not going to allow this person to get away with this whole thing, but let me not address him. I'm going to address the person who is in charge. I addressed the lady. I said, at the entrance, it says no mask, no entry. The gentleman here is not wearing a mask. How do you explain that? So, but this gentleman at least was polite enough to apologize and then leave. So I explained to the lady, the cashier, I said, you know, you need to be consistent about this whole thing, because it is a very serious thing.
It's a reality.
It is a reality. Yeah, it is a reality. You know, if people were to see what happens when a person is breathing through the ventilator, they would then understand why it is important just to do what we are told to do.
Now, in your Facebook post, as you were, you know, wrapping up your post, you then said there has to be a peeling off of conditioning about death and rituals for the benefit of ensuring that others do not get infected. What did you mean?
I simply meant that there are things that we've been doing for generations after generations, family traditions. We've been sticking to those practices, to those conditioning. When so and so dies, this is what is done in this family. I must say, that is history. It doesn't work. And I don't see us going back to that for a long time, if ever we will, because we are dealing with a totally new situation that is challenging us to put aside how we have been conditioned.
Yes.
The fact that the body must be brought home Friday afternoon, etc. People must be there.
The overnight.
This is it. The hugging, it's not happening, and there is a reason for it. So I think we just need to.
So we have to relook our practices, traditional and otherwise, that were already second nature to us, in the interest of health.
I'm glad, in the interest of health, because it's not, in a way, I think we are being given the opportunity to really look at these practices. Do they really matter in the interest of health?
And you mentioned, and you also mentioned something, Yubuti, you gave, as a family, you gave your brother a simple, orderly, and dignified funeral.
Yes.
Without the frills, and without the bells and whistles that are normally part of imingcwabo nowadays.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think, and please don't take this thing as Black people, we have gotten to a point where funerals are very expensive. We have put a lot of things that actually make the total cost of burying to be very, 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 very high. Do you think the experience of this COVID-19 and what you've just experienced as a family has reset or will reset, how we conduct funerals as Black people?
It has to reset how we conduct funerals as Black people. To be honest, I think we were going overboard, that I must say. Expensive coffins, people going shopping. I mean, these funerals were becoming a very expensive social occasion, by the way. And then there would be the feasting part of it.
So they have to be seen.
So, we are being given the opportunity to relook all these things. If, for instance, I'm going to use myself, if Linda's body is going to be taken from the mortuary straight to the cemetery, so I think for Linda, this is, at least let them put Linda in a Jewish coffin, simple, etc. After all, there are people who remain, or there are causes that Linda treasures. Let those resources go to the resources to the causes that Linda supports.
Yes.
You see, I think we need to have another way of paying tribute to somebody who has passed on in a manner that people carry in their hearts, in a manner that says, this is what she stood for. And then the whole thing carries on. Yes. We were becoming too lavish, I'm sorry to say.
Yes. Now, you mentioned Indaba Uguti, as the family, you accepted Uguti, there are these new regulations. The fact that your brother was wrapped multiple layers, you did not insist Uguti Maivule, Anyway, you had already been advised before ngesikhathi nifuna ama-fingerprints that, you know, there's a process there. Now, in the Eastern Cape, my home province, we have seen incidences where families have bulldozed funeral parlors, you know, or undertakers to actually open those plastics. Because bafuna ubona ukuthi singcwaba umuntu wethu kahle kahle. Futhi bafuna nomgeza. They want to wash the body because he ritual ala ekhaya. Ukuthi this person who's designated, you know, must be the one who makes sure that the body is washed in the funeral parlor, and on the day of the funeral, people can see that indeed this is our person. So, and subsequent to those funerals, there's been a lot of infections amongst the people who were part, because there's a lot of fumes, everything that comes up, you know, and the body itself, or the fluids from the body, that obviously contain the virus. The virus can be there alive for weeks. Exactly. So mawivula, you know, and there are those fumes in a we call it aerosol thing, you know. It's possible for the virus to then, you know, come out with those fumes, and people inhale that, and then people get infected. In fact, that's the most logical way of explaining how those people got infected. Because others will say, no, but there's been some gloves. No, but the people who were around the body at the time when it was opened, they actually inhaled, you know, some of the fumes that came, you know, because the plastic had been keeping all of this. So, so what do you think, you know, our people need to, you know, what needs to be done to get our people to really understand? At least you, and Nibuya family, you know, that is pragmatic when it comes to these things. And in other families, people, they want things the way Abobabom Kurube used to do them.
True.
And so they will not necessarily take it, you know, Uguti Mabanga or not.
Yes, I'm glad you are raising that. First of all, what I know is that the first plastic layer that is used to wrap the body is transparent, right? So that there could be this next of kin to identify. And then obviously they then put other layers, etc. What I thought about this, actually. I remember saying to myself, at least my family is what it is. So I wouldn't say the challenge was beyond management, if I could put it that way. And then I thought about other people. There is something that we have been discussing at Cabinet in KwaZulu-Natal, KZN, because of what's going on. The suggestion is that when a person passes away in this manner, the best approach is to use, for instance, to get, say, the ward counselor or umfundisi, but to accompany health workers, designated health workers, to that family, to do what I did, for instance, simplify things, etc. That is what is being suggested. It's going to be a process, but I think it has to be done, because I don't think we are going to win the war against this virus is if we leave it to chance, because traditional practices are so ingrained, it's unbelievable. You know, in northern KZN, somebody was talking to me. Yes, that's right. hi, apparently people they are dying. There are those who are infected, and they were running short of isolation areas, etc., because of one funeral that happened there. So we are beginning to pick up those things. So I would support the idea of sending just a team of people to go and counsel the family that actually this is how it will be a challenge, but it needs to be done.
Yes, you see now, because if you look at the pandemic, we're about to wrap up. If you look at the pandemic, Western Cape had the biggest load. Now Gauteng has got the most. Eastern Cape has been there competing with Gauteng for some time for number 2 position, and KZN was the 4th province amongst these 3 coastal and 1 inland, which is Gauteng. But the numbers of confirmed cases and even of deaths was much lower than the other 3. But manje, the pandemic is picking up for KZN. And even the number of deaths are picking up. So it's gonna be a challenge. And already in the KZN, because of again comorbidities, especially in the northern part of it, where people have got immune challenges, it's gonna the toll is likely to be high. And so therefore what you guys are suggesting would be practical, or community health workers or whoever goes and educates the families around Lamar regulations. It's going to be very difficult for people to comply, because people comply when they understand. But when they understand, you don't speak to them in English. You speak to them in a language that they understand, that respects and understands their traditions.
Exactly. And then another thing that is very, very important, I think we need to send people who are trusted in those communities, because there is this skepticism, this suspicion. So people who go there need to be people who are trusted and who handle things sensitively.
Yes. So when you look back now as umndeni, we are about to wrap up. When you look back as umndeni, typical Africans, somebody passes away. From that day, throngs of people come in, groups of people, they come in, they share a verse, they sing, they put whatever contribution, and that happens for like 7 days or whatever, and that is partly, it's therapeutic, I'll put it that way. By the time you bury 7 days later, you've been strengthened, spiritually. People have come, had shared wisdom. Others, they come and stay there for the duration of the bereavement. Even afterwards.
Correct.
Now, those were coping mechanisms that contributed a lot in, making Black people not to have so much of complicated grief, bereavement. All of those things are gone.
Correct.
So what do you think? I mean, if I look at you, you had to switch on and became a compliance officer or a policeman. Your grief process for your dear brother, you did not, yes, you were here and there, but most of the time you were just making sure that things happen. Are you planning to get some professional assistance? The traditional way of that therapy, they sing and all of that is not there. And so So are you, are you considering, ukuthi uthole usizo? And by the way, it's not face to face nowadays. It's virtual like this.
I like that one. And actually, I think I am fortunate in that I have grown to, well, from when I was a child, I was a middle child. There was Umafungwase.
I can
And
see
then,
now. I can see something in common. I'm also a middle child.
is it so? So I learned to be independent and rely on myself. It was, well, I used to say I'm relying on myself.
You are not a firstborn. You are
No,
not a lastborn.
no.
So you are not special. You now have to just make things happen for yourself.
So I learned, I was floating in the middle, and I learned to do that. I used to think that I rely on myself, but I think I now know that it's deeper than that. As a result, I learned that when I'm facing a challenge, answers come when I am alone.
Yes.
When I am alone, and they do come. So I have become a very, very strong person when it comes to things that really, really shake and rattle me.
Yes.
After my brother's funeral, I still remember, because the funeral was on Sunday. On Monday morning, I said to myself, I'm not going to sit and think about this whole thing. Let me go for a run. I jogged.
Yeah.
I jogged for 5 Ks. And I still remember that in the afternoon, I went and played golf, just to begin to normalize things, etc. Because
you see, that's what we call positive distraction as a coping mechanism in psychology.
Exactly.
At least you were not in denial.
No, not at all.
And you did not escape using
No.
mind-altering beverages. You did things that are actually constructive in terms of coping. Yes.
And so I've just been doing that, and there was the preparation for Mandela Day. I've been out feeding children and making contact with people I would not have met, and identifying needs to say, this needs to be sorted out. Yesterday, for instance, I was
when I saw that post of yours at that children's home where you were feeding children. Yes. I said there is a positive distraction in action. You are now in your pain, you are actually choosing to do good to others, which in a way is actually helpful.
Yeah, I think Ubudi has just re-energized me in a certain. I was saying to my sister, I've become very, I've achieved quite a lot, something that I would not have achieved before. But in the morning, I'm doing this and that, because I also have a foundation and an NPO that I registered in honor of my parents. So there was this thing that says, hey, there is work to be done. There is work to be done. And so I'm grateful for that, for being a middle child.
Yes, yes. Yeah, ngoba phela, like I said, laba bokuqala, or the ones who are the last ones, they tend to have it easy. And survival skills, they tend to be more the middle ones, But anyway, look, having listened to you and the fact that you are strong, but I'm also still saying, do take time to reflect, do take time to reflect. As a Christian, we talk of guardian angels.
Mm.
So your brother is one of your newest, is your newest guardian angel, you know, and you know, he's there.
You know, could I just share this with you?
Yeah.
This is very important.
Yeah.
There was a time when I spent 4 years in Tanzania, and then I returned home in 2009.
Yes.
So having been away, I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
I was with my father in the South Coast, and that's where my brother also lived.
Yes.
Then I would jump on minibus taxis going to town.
Yeah.
One day, it was in the morning, my brother, the one who passed away, arrives. And then he just said, Sissy, I've noticed something I don't like. And I wondered, my goodness, I've been away. What have I done? Then he said, I see you getting into minibuses, going to town. I don't want to see you doing that. You know, I have a van. Even if he was deputy mayor. Hey.
Manje wena uhamba
So,
ngetekisi.
so, and he was so emphatic. I don't want to see you doing that again. When I'm at work, there is another vehicle. Go to Kolega's mother. You know, she will give you the key. I've already spoken to her. I mean, really, that was my brother.
You know, Pela, there are levels. So manje when you know the family is at this level. Manje, you come back from Tanzania now. You know you need to keep up with the with the standards.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think you've also helped me, by the way. I think this is part of the healing I needed.
That was the purpose. That was the purpose, to just allow you to open up about your grief, but also because that's the theme I picked up from your post, was that you want to share your insights to prepare others in case they have to go through this journey. CSCT in my language, inyathi ibuzwa kwabaphambili. You know, you get wisdom from learning from others, sometimes misfortunes, you know. And if there's any positive that you could impart through your unfortunate circumstances of losing your brother, you know, then that's selflessness, and that's actually very good. So but ke siyakhuluma siyahleka noba kubi kuyahleka.
Oh, thank you.
It's important to, you know, sometimes if you are caught up in that grief situation, it can sometimes get too much. So you need somebody who is not necessarily in there to, you know, to come in and try and drag a smile, you know, this and that, just to, you know, give you a sense of mood, you know.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. It's therapeutic, I must confess. It is. It is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So, Sis Linda, I'm about to wrap up now. What message do you have for our viewers who have been listening, who may have gone through a similar experience as you? Because as you see now in Facebook, every day we are seeing RIP, RIP, RIP.
I know.
Do you have for South Africans? And by the way, we are complicated because we are living double lives. We are Western Christian most of the time. Okay, but basically, you know, as but we also have strong traditional things, and sometimes during times like these, we are caught between those two worlds, and it complicates things. It becomes worse during times like now. So, what message do you have to Abantu, Basmakaya, you know, around your experiences? Just some few nuggets of wisdom.
Particularly Abantu Basemakhaya. change is unavoidable. And we need to prepare for that. I don't want to say prepare. I think we need to be aware that change is just unavoidable. Where we are not coping, the Lindazamas are there. At least people should also feel free to call. I have been doing counseling from lockdown 5 when people were just depressed, etc. They would call. I would, because they were not coping. They were dealing with a situation they were not ready for. Kubantu basemakhaya, what I have learned is that we think that they know, but they don't know. We think that what we follow on television, they understand. No, they don't. I think abantu basemakhaya need to take advantage of the space, even if it was so 10. I really think it would help if they invite some of us, SS Hambe Pambili, just to come and share, because they cannot Zoom, they don't have that facility. And our people are still very auditory. Bayathanda ukuthi abakubone bakulalele. We are there. We are there. And I think we need to be there more than before for abantu basemakhaya, from what I have witnessed, because they mean well. It's just that they don't know.
Singahlali nje emhlanga nasebhalito nje asiye sihlangane nabo.
Asiye, exactly, asiye.
Obviously observing the preventative measures.
Exactly. This is the thing. This is the thing. For instance, you know, kukhona abanye ngiye ngisho umuntu mesekhala ngithi mina after 2 hours, you know, oke uyehlise imask, because we can't expect ukuthi they are but uncomfortable. They don't know. It's this lack of knowledge that is going to cause the perish engibonayo, because our people don't know and we assume they know. Mina, I got to understand this when my brother passed away. Ogunya, I had assumed, oh, they know. No. They didn't know. And I was there to then take them through a very, very complex situation. Yeah.
You know, maybe in the vantage point of Okuyo, you know, phakathi leadership ye province, the issue ye public health education, but in vernacular. And preferably driven by people from the communities that they trust.
Exactly.
They go a long way. The same strategies we adopted with HIV, community-based education. I think iyadingeka ngoba le radio ne TV, it's not enough.
Not at all. Actually, it becomes lending it a psychological entertainment. You know, sizwile nje, and then abantu nizwile bekuthiwa ku radio, and people don't realize that, hey, you know, this is a reality. I highly support that, and I will make sure it happens. I will make sure it happens.
You know, I read an article that was on Daily Maverick by some NGOs in and around Cape Town, and they were drawing from best practices throughout the world. And there's some province in India that adopted this bottom-up approach of using community health workers. And the numbers of confirmed cases and even deaths in that particular province, you know, are not in line with the rest of the country, only because they decided to adopt a community-based approach. So I think we must learn from other pandemics like HIV and try and adopt some of those things. So I think masele ngixolisa ke ukuthi fanele sivale. Ngiyabonga.
Ngibonga kakhulu.
Ngiyabonga wosiyana.
Hey, manje angizazi isiduko ke zakho.
Ngameni Machiza. Ngiyabonga mina ngubhele ulanga. Udlangula. So njengoba ukhuluma ngombhele akathi hawu ikhona i-connection la.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much, man, for availing yourself during this difficult time in your family. But sometimes through talking, a little bit of the emotional pain is taken away. So
I appreciate. This.
It's an honor for me to have hosted you, and I will make sure that you get this clip so that you can share it with the family members.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all those the viewers. Yes, thank you.
All right. No, thanks, Zama, and thank you to all our viewers. I hope, although it was a tough subject, a sensitive subject that we're speaking about, but there were moments, of laughter, not because we think it's less serious, but sometimes it's good to bring Ubuntu and just, understand that in between the pain, there is life, and so I hope, Sizama, you will continue to do the positive distraction. And when you think you are overwhelmed, please use the employee assistance program that is at the office of the Premier. There is an EHW office, section in HR where they provide support for people who've gone through situations like this. Please use them should there be a need.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kesisile.
Sure,
Thank you to our viewers.
Great.